Hi all, thank you for being here today. We're very pleased to announce Giancarlo Italiano as the new head coach for the Wellington Phoenix A-League men's side for the 23-24, 24-25 A-League seasons. We're very thrilled that we've been able to make the appointment internally from within the club. It was critical to us that not only are we trying to develop players here, but we're also trying to develop staff, coaches, and it's very pleasing for us to be able to appoint Giancarlo to the head coach role.
Yes, right. Well,
Chiefy, this is who I know you as. What does this mean for you? How proud of a moment is this in your career to be an A-League head coach?
Unbelievable moment in my career. Very grateful towards the club, the coaching staff, Wolfe especially. And yeah, just really looking forward to taking this opportunity and doing well for the club.
When you came to the club, did you have aspirations to one day step into the role of being a head coach, and when did that become a realistic sort of?
At the start, it's a very, I would say, unrealistic expectation, because even just getting into the setup is extremely difficult. But once I developed my skill set over the last couple of years, I felt slowly confident that I could embrace a role if the opportunity was given, but still a very surreal sort of expectation.
Yeah, obviously it's announced with a couple of games still left in the season. Nothing changes, I imagine, for the next couple of years?
No, my duty is to make sure that I fulfil my assistant role as best I can, and how I have been over the last 3-4 years. And making sure the team go to the finals and hopefully win the championship for Wolfe.
Yeah. Rob, can you speak about, I guess when Wolfe announced he was going to go, why you decided Giancarlo was sort of next coach, you know, rather than entering the market and looking further afield?
Well, yeah, I mean, as Gilly said, we thought for some time that in the same way that we develop players, we should be capable of developing coaching talent, and we know we're doing that. We know through the academy, but the reserve team structure, that we have a lot of really capable coaches. So when we've known for some time, I've known for some time that Wolfe would not be coaching with us next season, and we can cover that off a little bit later, but we looked internally, and once we'd done some internal interviews, we felt really strongly that we didn't need to look externally. And then it was a matter of deciding what was right at the time in terms of who would be the next coach. And the candidates internally had different attributes. They were going to offer different things, and in the end we decided that Giancarlo, Chief, much simpler Chief, is, and he tells me it's Chief, not Chiefy, Chief, was the right man for the job. And I think it's a really good progression for us that we didn't need to look externally, and we're really comfortable about that.
Chiefy, congrats, mate.
Thank you, Barney.
Chief, congrats. A lot of the players who are going to carry on next year, and there's a dozen signed, there may be some more, will know you in a certain role within this team.
Yes.
Will you have to markedly change your persona around the playing group when you move into the head coaching role?
Not significantly. The role as assistant now is more to provide a buffer with the head coach, and I think I do that well. And the assistant that I bring in, I believe, will do the same job I've done. I also like to be still very close to the players, but I will change where need be in terms of tone and on game day. But there will be a little bit of a change.
Yeah, so from being the buffer to
Yes.
being the man who the players are buffered from,
Yes.
presumably, you're comfortable moving into that more senior role?
Definitely. It's one thing that I embraced in my last role when I was at Sydney. I enjoyed being a head coach for the couple of years that I was there. I feel very comfortable leading. I feel like it's one of my strong suits, dealing with group environment and dealing with so many individuals.
Yes, also when someone makes the move internally and you take over, I guess people say, okay, what are you going to bring that's fresh? What are you going to bring that's new? Are you sort of wedded to the playing style that Wolfe's brought in with you alongside, or do you have fresh ideas about the way you want Phoenix to play?
So for me, the big thing is with such a a base that's already retained. It allows for continuity, but it also allows me to bring in fresh ideas and develop and evolve the system, which I feel will take a couple of years. But I definitely think that we can progress.
And obviously, you know, as successful as Wolfe has been and coaches before him, Phoenix haven't won a finals game for a while. Hopefully that'll change this year. But is there anything in your opinion that would elevate this team from constant finals participants, which you've become, to a team that wins finals matches?
I think consistency, and I think the one thing that we need to factor in is that we develop a lot of our players internally, and it takes time for groups to mature. So I think by having that continuity and having a couple of more years, that will give them the platform to win regular finals games, and hopefully the big one.
I'll let you find for you if that's okay. It seems, you know, in years gone by, there were a lot of foreign coaches in the A-League men's. Now I think only Nick Montgomery and Nick Green, interim coach at Brisbane, are not Australian. Is that a trend that you think will continue for a while, that we're going to see more coaches from this part of the world in the A-League men's?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you have a look at the generation we've got here now, the golden generation of Australian coaches, right, that are coaching in Australia, they've probably paved the way for the next generation to come through underneath that, and they've done a fantastic job. So I think as the league evolves, obviously the coaching development will evolve with it. I mean, look at us now. We've got three coaches with pro license at the club, and we've got another 3 working towards it, right? So as that thing continues to evolve and the development of coaches does, I think more and more will get an opportunity from this side of the world, which is good.
Does this mean you can continue on with recruitment now? And I guess is that one of the benefits of announcing this so early rather than during the off-season?
Yeah, look, obviously as we've spoken about over the last few months, there's been some retention that has been critical, first and foremost, and now that we have the head coach in place, you know, we can start to look at those positions where we need to do some recruitment, and obviously we can start that, or have started some conversations already.
Yeah, and Giancarlo, in terms of you know, Wolfe's success, one of the things was the recruitment of foreign players and some of the players the club's been able to bring in the club. I guess fans will be wondering what involvement you had in that. Is that something that will continue at the club? You know, the fact that you're staying on, is there's still going to be you know, that eye of getting great foreign players to the club? Well,
without going into too much detail, I had a large part in the recruitment process over the last 4 years. From day one, I remember when arriving to the club, we were for 2 months locked in a room looking for the first makeup of that squad. And every year it's been a continuation. We use the same process to identify players, identifying the best players with the characteristics that would suit our playing model. And I have that well established, and I'll just carry on that moving forward.
Yeah, and is there different
but just on that, it's not one person.
Yeah.
So Gilly is obviously heavily involved as well. So it's actually 3 people that are making those decisions, and it still goes back ultimately in terms of the money spent back to the football committee. So that it's not the coach saying this is the person I want and I'm going to get it. It's actually, there is a process, and it's a very considered process. And I think that's part of the reason why we've actually done very well with some of the players that we've selected. You're trying to select players to a pattern. We're trying to find players that actually fit the resources of the club, and we're trying to find players that are actually going to be good people in the club as well. So it's not one person's decision.
Yeah. And I guess with 4 foreigners locked in for next season, does that then present a different challenge though for you next season, where it's going to be the Kiwi Aussie players that you're going to have to be smart about signing for next season?
In terms of local players, or
yeah, I guess like the foreign series is probably, you know, at most going to be one new foreigner, so it's going to be, you know, tough.
I thought that would be an advantage because there's less player movement, so it's a bigger core, so it'd be easier then to hit the ground running for the season.
Yeah, and Rob, does it give the board confidence too that when Wolfe had COVID and Chiefy stepped in for a couple of games and the team won both games, did that little test run, does that help when you're factoring in who's going to be the next coach?
I think it wasn't a major part of the decision, but I think all that experience is pretty beneficial. So I don't think we certainly didn't make the selection based on 2 games, even though he and to be in charge when we won both. 100% record as head coach in the A-League is not bad. But it is...
no pressure.
It's all those things are beneficial, absolutely. And I think it's, you know, when you look back at Wolfe and Wolfe's tenure here, and Chief being the assistant coach, the 4 years and the 2 years in Australia, but even the getting there, everything the club went through, there's no coaching book that covers that stuff. You know, and I was talking to Wolfe about it one night about go write a book, because there's no coaching manual for that sort of thing. So you go through that sort of experience, you can't help but come out with real world experiences that are going to be useful. When the pressure goes on, it's like, boy, I've already faced a lot of pressure here. So actually playing out here or playing anywhere in Australia, going back to normal arrangements, it's like, well, this is much simpler. So I think those sort of experiences for Chief, we thought that was pretty interesting. Looking at why we, you know, looking at why we thought we would go with Chief, those things were very helpful.
You talked about an assistant before, Chief. Is there somebody you've got in mind, or we're going to find that out at some stage in the next little while?
You will find that out at a later date. I'm discussing with a couple of candidates at the moment, but like I said, the focus is now on the remaining season. Once we finish this season, then we'll look forward to making an announcement on the assistant.
There's been a bit of talk that the uncertainty around Wolfe staying or going has been in some ways disruptive. That's obviously from the outside looking in. Internally, has there been any noticeable disruption from that?
No, not at all. The players, the playing group, very professional. The coaching staff remain very dogmatic towards the way we play and the way we prepare for games.
Where did the Chief come from?
That's a long story, but my best friend who passed away when he was 25 gave me the nickname. And it was a private little moment. And then when he passed away, his cousin started calling me that, so it stuck. And and people know me as Chiefy or Chief. They don't even know my real name, which is crazy. But yeah, it's something that stayed with me, and it's a nice little remembrance of him.
Amazing, man. Thanks for sharing that. I've seen you also say that you're a bit of a nobody. That's your own quote, I think. I'm a nobody. Are you ready to be a somebody?
Definitely ready to be a somebody. I think that was a little bit out of context, but the premise behind that is that I don't have a significant playing career. I'm not someone that has played at a high level or played in Europe, or and I don't have that advantage, because it does help. So I've had to work really hard to get into this position. I've had to compensate in areas that I feel that makes that shortfall. So for me, this is a significant moment in my life. I hope a significant moment for the club, and I really want to give back to the club and do something valuable.
As you've come through, have you found that has been in any way an obstacle? You know, players like to know that, well, I presume some do want to know, oh, you've been there and done that, well, what would you know? You've never played at the highest level. Has that ever been a thing?
With this playing group, no, I don't think it's ever been asked. Do I think it's important? I think sometimes players like the fact that they see that experience, but at the same time, I feel like I give back things that maybe they haven't experienced, like more life experience. So I think, yeah, it's a bit of a balance.
You're our most successful All Blacks coach, has never played for the All Blacks, so.
This isn't too deep of a question. How did you get into coaching to begin with? If you were a professional player, like how did the coaching journey?
Purely by accident. I was playing for an all-age team Sunday for a Sunday league. Played 1 year. The next year, the coach didn't show up. One of my friends at the time said, "I think you'd be a good coach." I said, "You're mad." We ended up winning the grand final, and then from there, I just built a passion, a bit of a love, and then I realised I had a bit of a knack in terms of getting the best out of people, managing people. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed working also with younger players and developing players and see them blossom over a period.
And so, because you were a youth coach at Sydney FC,
Yes.
how close were you with Wolfe at Sydney FC, and when he got the job over here and said to you, do you want to come with me? Like, had you guys been working quite closely together? Was it quite out of the blue? Like, how did that sort of happen?
I wouldn't say we were working together. We were in the same office. So the first team and the National Youth League setup was all in the same office. So when I first started at Sydney, I was lucky enough, I was a 20s coach, and Graham Arnold was the head coach, and then Steve Corica took over and then brought in Wolfe. Our interaction was minimal. It wasn't as, we weren't as close as we are now. So when the opportunity came, when he became head coach here at Wellington, the opportunity came that I could become analyst. So he reached out, and then we've built a very strong relationship.
Take much convincing to bring you over? It's a big move to come into.
It was a big move. At the time, I had my partner there, and my mum, my family. So it was a very hard decision to come over. I also was very close to finishing my degree then, and I was going to focus on becoming a very unhappy lawyer for the rest of my life. But as it turned out, I thought it was a really good move in the end.
And this could be a really dumb question, how Italian are you?
It depends what cycle we're in. If it's the Euros, I'm very Italian. If it's the World Cup, I'm not Italian at all. So, no, I was brought up until the age of 6 as Italian being the dominant language at home. My mother also brought me up very Italian, but then as time's worn on, my Italian is slowly not as good as before. So
like Italian parents, but born in Australia.
Yes, yeah.
And how have you enjoyed coaching and living in New Zealand and embracing New Zealand?
I love New Zealand. I love Wellington. It's a beautiful city. I live in a really nice spot at the moment, so I get to enjoy the water every day. Maybe a little bit more windy than what I like, but no, it's fantastic. The city's great. I'm very used to it now. The first year when I moved here, I lived in the centre of town, so I was able to commute everywhere and really get the best part of Wellington.
Yeah, and how supportive has Wolfe been, since he would have told you he was moving on, and then I'm sure you would have said, you're keen for the role. Was he quite supportive of you going for this role and pushing? Yeah,
definitely. I don't think I would have put myself forward if I didn't have his support. For me, he's an integral part of my development, almost like a father figure. He's helped me along my whole journey since day one here, and for me, he's treated me almost like his son, and I've been able to really develop quickly because of that.
Rob, I know Wolfe said you tried to convince him to stay for another year, but did you always have an inkling that he probably was going to go after this season? Or?
Yeah, I mean, we talked often about his future career, and I'd always said to him that he firmly believed, for what it was worth, he didn't have to believe me, but that he had the ability to coach internationally, that he could go and coach in Europe. And that part of the discussion when we re-signed him was that if he got another couple of years under his belt at the Phoenix, that would be a really good stepping-off stone in terms of going into Europe, and that he shouldn't go to another club in the A-League, that would be a sideways move, not a forward-looking move. So he's taking a punt because last time I checked, he doesn't have a role in Europe. He's going to look in Asia, he's going to look in Europe, but he's a talented coach, and does he get a head coach job? He might not, but he's certainly got the ability to coach, and I think for him, he's ambitious. Football is his career, and I think it's a natural thing that he looks to go. Could he have stayed another year? I mean, quite possibly, but at some point, I think he felt it was the right time for a change. And as he pointed out, coaches don't last that long in the A-League. I mean, we're a patient club, and we're quite happy to back back coaches. But yeah, it is a bit of a merry-go-round, and I think on your CV, if you can say, hey, I've got 4 years with really consistent results, that looks pretty good on the CV. So for him, it is a pretty natural time to go, and I think it's the right decision for him.
Yeah, there could be some other vacancies pop up at other A-League clubs, and I'm sure he would be highly sought after if it does happen. Would you be disappointed if he does end up at another A-League club, or?
It's not, whatever happens, happens. I know he's not looking to go to another club in the A-League. If he ended up at another club, that's possible, but I know that's not where he's looking, and he really does want to coach. And I think when you look at the merry-go-round that you see in Europe in coaching spots, there are a lot of clubs over there that could do a lot worse than grab him.
And can I ask too, APL announced a few weeks ago about an Auckland team potentially coming into the A-League. As someone who's invested quite a lot in ensuring that professional football still exists in New Zealand and having this club, what do you make of there potentially being another team, and do you believe that could actually get off the ground?
Well, I certainly think it could get off the ground. The way APL have done it is to go and look at individual markets and make an assessment. And the assessment that they arrived at was Canberra and Auckland were the two areas. So rather than simply do open slather as it used to be, and anyone can apply, they actually did a lot of work, a lot of groundwork in terms of size of the market, size of the football audience, size of the player base, the amateur subscriptions, and so on and so on and so on. And those are the two markets that stood out. And the two markets, particularly Auckland, that didn't have an A-League team. So that is good. That was all well done, I think, on APL's behalf. You still need someone silly enough, basically, to stand up and go, hey, we're prepared to back this. And would it work? I do think it would work in Auckland. They're not small numbers, so it's got to be someone who's prepared to back it and back it for a long time, because you cannot, things just don't work overnight. Is Auckland a big enough market to do it? History says no, but I think as the game develops, I think there is easily room for Auckland, and I do think it would be a good thing. It would be a really good thing for football to have two professional franchises in New Zealand, because we're just not seeing enough development of the game here, and unless some things change, the professional side is driving change. No one else is driving change in football in New Zealand at the moment, and it needs to change. So getting another club would be handy from our point of view. Does it make it a bit harder in terms of player pool? Yes. More competition for sponsors' dollars, obviously. But when you look at the lack of development around things like the women's game, getting another club with another outlet for players would be huge, and it has to happen at some point.
Billy, just I know we have the Chief obviously, but now that this piece is locked away and you'll start, I guess, work on the rest of the recruitment of the men's side, is there a time frame for the women's coaching appointment for next season?
We're actually going through a review process on that this week, and we'll talk to Nat and review the season, look at her thinking going forward, and then some decisions will come out of that review.
Has it been challenging for you with, obviously, players, they're coming towards the end of their contracts, they want to know what's going on, whether they have to look for a new club or whether they're staying or going or whatever it is, others are showing interest. Having the uncertainty around Wolfe, and to flip it, would it be more or less challenging now that you've got Chief locked in?
Look, some players will use the excuse of what's the coach doing, but I think largely when you start talking to players sort of January, February like we did, they're actually not ready to make a decision. They still think that another few games under their belt and maybe they'll get in the All Whites, and then maybe someone will come calling from overseas. So I don't really think it's a big issue. At the end of the day, players will sign because of what you put in front of them, and whether they think that's good or not, right? So I don't think it's been a major part of it. We've lost a couple of players because they obviously thought their future was better overseas, and for some of those clubs that they're going to, the coaching's uncertain there as well, right? So I don't believe it's a big issue.
Done. Cool. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank